Today, from Saratoga Springs, we continue a bit of soul-searching as we lumber through the latter part of June in the racing season. With what appears to be a weak male handicap division, and Zenyatta, the leader of the Fillies and Mares division, remaining in California, I'm left here with Roselli to analyze what's ahead of us for the summer racing season. John, staying with the Saratoga perspective, are there any trends you see emerging at the Spa meet that are indicative of what's going on in general in racing today?
I think we're going to see some changes at Saratoga this year in terms of the emphasis of what's most prominent, what are the most prominent features of the meet, and there's a few reasons for this. The first thing I think that we're going to see is that the handicap divisions are going to be more important than the two-year-old racing. Two-year-old racing is a prominent feature of the Saratoga meet. Everyone's looking to see what juveniles are making themselves prominent and pushing toward the juvenile, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, with an eye toward obviously the Derby and the Spring Classics. I think there'll be less emphasis on that this year.
John, can you point to any evidence that supports that proposition?
New York, as Mike Watchmaker in a Daily Racing Forum pointed out, has been carding fewer and fewer races for two-year-olds. Now, Kentucky still has been doing quite a bit of two-year-old racing. But I get the feeling that the racing office has been de-emphasizing it, at least in New York, and may continue to do it in Saratoga, unless there's a huge influx of trainers. Now, we've just seen Wesley Ward take a string of two-year-olds over to the Ascot meet in England and really do bang up well. So it's becoming a little more international, even with the juveniles. So I look for less juvenile racing at Saratoga this summer.
John, both of us agreed that the returning male handicap division left something to be desired. What's going to fill a void here?
I mean, we complain about this every year. Oh, the handicap division is so thin. Everybody retires after the three-year-old season, etc. But I think that's definitely true this year. I think there are very few handicap horses out there. We're seeing, at least in the filly and mare division, we're seeing Zenyatta is going to stay in California. So both the males and the females are looking thin, which in my mind sets it up for emerging four-year-olds. There's no handicapping angle that I like better than the lightly raced, rapidly improving four-year-old. And I look for that angle to be very prominent at Saratoga this summer.
So why would any of this point to having a more interesting year in the male handicap division than in prior years?
Because of the Breeders' Cup, being in California on synthetic, the East Coast dirt races become more important. They become the de facto dirt championships. The Breeders' Cup is going through an identity crisis here. Let's not mince any words. 2 years ago at Monmouth, it was a sea of mud, very formless racing. You know the Europeans like to come over when the Breeders' Cup's on the East Coast, but that was, that sea of mud. Those conditions weren't attractive to them. Now we have synthetic racing in California, not at all attractive in terms of footing and climate for the Europeans. They have nowhere to go. And East Coast horsemen are staying away from that too. They don't see why they should campaign all year on dirt and then ship out to California to race on synthetic. Who knows how the form will hold.
Well, I have to agree with you there, John. It's a very significant point, and it can be argued that all of racing is in crisis, not just the Breeders' Cup. We'll be back to talk about this further with Roselli in the next post. And as for the handicapping challenge, this week is off, and we'll resume next week, next Saturday at Belmont Park, with the Mother Goose.